schooling and for my for the actual license.
Good for you. Good morning, everyone. We're going to get started here shortly. Good. Catherine. Good. Okay. Welcome. Today is Tuesday, April 14th, 2026. This is a regular board meeting of the Board of Supervisors. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Joe Nevs.
Here.
Richard Valley.
Here.
Doug Verboon.
Here.
Rusty Robinson.
Here.
Robert Thayer.
Here. All right. At this time, Pastor Thayer is going to lead us in our prayer.
Good morning, everyone. Please bow your heads with me. Heavenly Father, Lord, as we gather here this morning, we just ask that you go before us and just put your hand over the greater good of government as decisions get made, and just ask that you set your hedge of protection around those who are gathered here this morning, that you would keep us all safe. And Lord, we just give you a special request to the family of Deputy Randy Hopper, our neighbor next door, who tragically lost his life. We just ask that you put a hedge of comfort and around that family and the Colorado County Sheriff's Office and all of those who've been impacted by his death. And as we get started here, just ask that you go before us and bless the remainder of this day. In your son's name we pray. Amen.
Amen. So before we do a flag salute, I want to take a moment of silence, probably about 10 seconds or so, for Deputy Randy Hopper. Those of you that don't know, he was a deputy in Tulare County. So our condolences go out to his family. I believe he had 2 children and 1 on the way. To Mike Boudreau, the sheriff, and also to the Sheriff Department of Tulare County. I've reached out and expressed our condolences, but we'll just take a moment of silence, please. Thank you very much. All right, at this time, Patrick Blacklock represents RCRC. I believe he's the president and CAO, and he's going to lead us in our flag salute. Good morning, Patrick.
Thank you. Hand over heart. To the flag, United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, moving right along, we'll get on to unscheduled appearances. This is an opportunity for members of the public to address the board on items of interest within the board's jurisdiction and which are not already on the agenda. The board will not answer questions impromptu, and concerns or complaints will be referred to appropriate staff. For items which are on the agenda, members of the public will be provided with an opportunity to address the board as each item is brought up for discussion. Speakers should limit their comments to not more than 2 minutes. Madam Clerk, do we have anyone online?
I have no written correspondence, no speaker cards, and no one online has their hand raised.
Very good. Do we have anyone in the audience that would like to speak today? Oh, yes. Good morning, sir. State your name for the record, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Alex Walker, speaking on behalf of the Rotary Club of Lemoore. Just wanted to thank our incredible community for such a successful Saturday food drive fundraiser. We raised $1,550 in monetary funds. We also had a full bed of non-perishable food items, which will be benefiting Lemoore Christian Aid and Lemoore College's food pantry to Golden Nest. We also had the pleasure of a club of having 3 tables at Golden Evening Under the Stars. It was an incredible fundraiser benefiting also the Golden Nest as well as Lemoore Christian Aid. But we're not stopping there. As of today, we're actually going to be launching a continued campaign where we'll be matching funds up to $5,000. So if you want to make a matchable contribution to help us raise money for these 2 incredible food pantries that are so important for our community, I highly encourage you to visit LemoreRotaryClub.org. In addition to that, we're also really excited to share that Lemoore Christian Aid has been a Kings County institution for such a long time. They serve every geographic space in our county, and it's such an incredible organization. But I also did not notice until recently, Lemoore College's food pantry, open 4 days a week, gives students 10 free grocery items, whether it be eggs, milk, meat, cheese, etc., produce, fresh produce. It really is truly a grocery store that is helping address student hunger and food disparities in our county. So if you want to be part of the difference, make a matchable contribution, I highly encourage you to look into that. I also highly encourage anyone interested in Rotary coming to visit our club. We would love to have you. Thank you.
Question for you. Does Lemoore Rotary have an MVP award?
Excuse me?
Most valuable player over there? Thank you.
I would say in this case, it would be our former president, Nick, who is the executive director of Lemoore Christian Aid.
Good answer. Thank you. Anyone else? Going. All right. So we'll go on then to item 3, approval of the minutes. Item A, report out of closed session.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. There was no reportable action taken in closed session on April 7th.
All right. Thank you, Madam Council. Item B, approval of the minutes from the regular meeting for April 7th, 2026. Do we have any questions from supervisors? Any questions from the audience? All right. I'll entertain a motion. Supervisor Neves, Supervisor Thayer, Madam Clerk.
Joe Nevs.
Yes.
Richard Valley.
All right.
Doug Verboon.
Abstain.
Rusty Robinson.
Yes.
Robert Thayer.
Yes.
Okay. We'll go on to the consent calendar. All items listed under the consent calendar are considered routine and will be enacted by one motion. If a board member has questions, requests additional information, or wishes to comment on an item, the vote should not be taken until after the questions have been addressed or comments made and the public has had an opportunity to comment on the consent calendar. Do you have any questions or comments from supervisors? From the public? I'll entertain a motion.
Move was presented.
Supervisor Verboon.
Second.
Supervisor Thayer, Madam Clerk?
Joe Nevs.
Yes.
Richard Valley. Doug Verboon.
Yes.
Rusty Robinson.
Yes.
Robert Thayer.
Yes.
Okay. Next up, we'll go on to regular items, and I believe item A is administration. Oh, we have Bob. Hello, Mr. Henry. Good morning.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So before your board is the quarterly report for the facility activities in Kettleman Hills. In December of 2009, the board adopted a resolution with authorized issuing a conditional use permit for Chemical Waste Management Incorporated to operate in Kettleman Hills facility. As part of the conditions of that approval, the general manager of Kettleman Hills shall give quarterly reports to the board and the supervisors in person. So at this time, I'd like to invite Bob Henry to come forward. Thank you, Mr. Henry.
Morning, Mr. Henry.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the Kings County Board of Supervisors. Report period covers from January 27th through April 13th. I have a few things, Mr. Verboon. All right, thank you. January 29th, California Department of Food and Agriculture Division Measurement Standards was at the facility. Inspection of our scales and records. No violations, no area of concern identified during the inspection. February 13th, KHF at the Kettleman City Community Center. KHF provided the seniors and towns with the Valentine's Day luncheon. February 17th, Kings County Environmental Health Services at KHF, monthly unannounced facility inspection, no violation, no areas of concern. February 20th, KHF discovered this one, Doug. Okay. KHF discovered a small, less than 1 foot in length split in the primary HTP liner along the edge of a patch in surface impoundment P9. So we have 3 solar evaporation ponds at the facility for hazardous waste, non-hazardous waste, liquids that go in there. The surface impoundment is constructed as a landfill, has multiple liner systems. So the top one, we noticed a small tear. Agencies were notified, work plan was developed. HTP liner was repaired on February 24th. Construction certification report was prepared. No issues resulted from the liner damage. No intrusion. It was above the water line. There was nothing that got into the leachate, things like that. Leachate being the liquids that would accumulate between the liners. The inspection and of that, no issues resulted from the damage, and the inspection program is working as established. So it's part of our regular inspection to go out and look at those surface impoundments, make sure there's no issues surrounding them. We did notice the small tear, or I should say liner separation. So you have the liners that are put down in 15-foot lengths. Every once in a while, you have to put a patch over the top where this actual little separation occurred was between the patch and where it overlaid on the liner. So not that unusual, but I wanted to make you aware of it. Okay. February 20th, also, Senator Hurtado introduces Senate Bill 1289. Senate bill proposes to require the disposal of non-RIC or hazardous waste in a hazardous waste landfill, regardless of where the waste is disposed, i.e. in state or out of state. That language is in the bill almost verbatim, and I'll tell you a little bit later where we're going to be going up to talk to or testify regarding the bill. March 10th, KHF at Kings County Board of Supervisors. KHF sponsored the Kings County Women's Making History event. And at the same time, you guys voted to co-sponsor with us Senate Bill 1289. March 11th, Kings County Fire Department at KHF Annual Facility Inspection report noted items needing corrected, including emergency lights. We had a couple emergency lights where the batteries needed to be replaced. Ceiling tiles where I had a few that I needed to replace those. And then the risers for the fire systems, I needed to do an inspection on those. So they did a good job. March 19th, KHF at the Kings County Board of Supervisors meeting in Kettleman City. Public meeting to receive comments on the proposed Senate Bill 1289. I'd like to thank Kings County Board of Supervisor Chairman Rusty Robinson and Kings County Board of Supervisor Richard Valley for their attendance and leadership in conducting the meeting, as it did get a little heated a little bit. So, but they were giving their opinions.
No tomatoes. We ran.
Also like to thank Victor Sarverin Jr. from Senator Hurtado's office for attending and answering questions as well. So March 24th, Kings County Environmental Health Service back out at the facility, monthly unannounced inspection, no violations, no area of concern. April 7th, this is going to sound like a repeat. On April 7th, KHF operator reported striking the geosynthetic liner in MSW landfill B17 with a bulldozer. So you guys this is for the hazardous waste operation, but I typically will report on MSW if we have something going on at the site. While traveling parallel to the side slope in the bulldozer, deploying the tarp for daily cover, the bulldozer struck the geosynthetic liner and damaged approximately 4 feet of liner component. So we have a tarp that we use to cover the MSW on a daily basis, and then we'll go through when the lift gets to the highest, to the level that it's supposed to be. What we'll end up doing is putting soil on. But in the intermediate, as you're working your way up to that lift height, what we'll do is we'll put on tarps. When he was pulling the tarp, he was watching what he was doing with the tarp, and he got over next to the liner. Okay. Damage occurred to the protective cover, geotextile, geonet, HDPE liner, and the geosynthetic clay liner. He got it all. So when he did a good job, he did a good job. He got it all. Agencies have been notified and a work plan is being developed to do that repair. So, and the MSW is actually below the area and there's no chance of having any contamination get through that area. All right, April 8th, Kings County Environmental Health Services back out at the facility, monthly unannounced inspection, no issues. Future events, week of April 20th, Kettleman Hills Facility Annual Community Meeting. Mailer will be sent to the DTSC mailing list, which includes every PO box holder in Kettleman City. This mailer is for, we'll talk about the time and the date for our annual meeting, and what it'll be doing is going over any changes in mainly any changes in going over changes in groundwater monitoring year over year and air monitoring year over year. So that'll be in the mailer. So the mailer depicting when the meeting is going to be, what time, date, where location, things like that. And then if there's been any changes in the groundwater program year over year, results in the program. Okay. April 22nd, KHF at the Senate Environmental Quality Committee hearing, Senator Hurtado's Senate Bill 1289 hearing. April 23rd, Central Valley Regional Water Quality Control Board is scheduled to be out for their biannual inspection. And then April 29th, Kettleman Hills facility to hold its annual meeting in Kettleman City. Topics include the air monitoring program, groundwater monitoring, contingency plan, placards review, and then also Kings County Office of Emergency Services will present family emergency preparedness, and that'll be by Abraham. So he'll be doing that. May 8th, KHF at the Kettleman City Community Center. KHF provide the seniors in town with the Mother's Day luncheon. Okay, so we'll have that. Permitting. So what we've been talking about all along is we've been going through our permitting operation, and then now we're doing Senate Bill 1289, or working with all the parties. With the permit, DTSC is to respond to public comments and make a final permit decision by September 30th. That's the date. It looks like it's going to be the date that they will then take action on it. Appeal within 30 days of the final permit decision. And I'll probably be somebody to appeal. Appeal decision will be with the DTSC Board of Environmental Safety. So others may appeal, but I will probably appeal as well.
On 30th?
September 30th? Yes, sir.
All right, so we got a track and a bulldozer episode, but we're addressing that, right?
We took care of one. We're working on the second. Yeah. And those are the two issues that I have for this quarter.
Okay. Any other questions, comments for Bob?
Do you have any experience? Oh, okay. Yeah, come on out. No, he's doing okay.
Supervisor Allen.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. Ms. Henry, thanks again for sponsoring with the beautiful bouquets for the women, for the women's leadership event last month. Appreciate you doing waste management, doing that every year. And then also on Senator Hurtado's bill, SB 1289, which, as you know, the county is a co-sponsor of that bill. I think it's timely today where we're lucky enough to have RCRC and here in the chambers, and the gentleman that's going to be presenting, talking about their legislative platform and their strategies too. And let's not assume that we have their support. So today might be a good day to get some of the gentleman's time and relay to him why that bill's so important here to the County of Kings, and see if we can't work something out and hear what their concerns might be. They got a lot of counties to cover too. As we know, politics is local.
Okay.
So we may have some work to do there. Thank you for being here today, sir.
Yeah, and he has all the information. I gave it to him at the last board meeting,
Thanks.
the whole staff. So
Thank you, sir.
Okay. Anybody else? All right. Anybody from the audience? Questions, comments? Thank you, sir. Good luck with your bulldozer.
No problem. Goes forward and back.
All
It will. Thank you, gentlemen.
right. I believe up next is Madam DA.
We need to accept.
Oh, yes, we do. Thank you, Supervisor. All right. Supervisor Neves, do I have a second?
Sorry.
Supervisor Theb, Madam Clerk.
Joe Nevs.
Yes.
Richard Valley.
Aye.
Doug Verboon. Rusty Robinson.
Yes.
Robert Thayer.
Now, Madam DA. Good morning.
Everybody doing?
Waking up.
It is one of those Tuesdays, huh? So today I'd like to come before you and ask for a proclamation declaring next week as Victims' Rights Week, starting April 19th. The theme for this year is Listen, Act, and Advocate. And this is an opportunity for our office and our community and this county to recognize those who have lost their lives to crime in the last year. This year, we have 17 people reflected in our quilt ceremony. And I have a few statistics for those 17 people. The youngest on the quilt is 17 years old, who is Lorenzo Sanchez from Corcoran. The oldest is 84-year-old, who is Dr. Elick from Hanford. 7 of these victims were passed away in vehicle-related crime. 1 of these victims passed away from domestic violence-related crime. 1 of these victims passed away from elder abuse crime. And 4 of these victims were passed away from gang-related crimes. 1 of our cases is unsolved. I did want to take an opportunity to acknowledge each of our victims on the record. Lorenzo Sanchez, the agency that investigated his death is Hanford Police Department. Daniel Dawson, the agency that investigated his death is the Hanford Police Department. Roxanne Nalani Hicks, the agency that investigated her death is the Kings County Sheriff's Office. George Gonzalez Gutierrez, the investigating agency is the California Highway Patrol. Donna Scalagi, who is a retired Kings County employee, is also one of the people that we are honoring. And the agency that investigated her death was the Kings County Sheriff's Office. Leonardo Puga, investigating agency, the California Highway Patrol. Marco Aravo, investigating agency, Hanford Police Department. Timmy Gore Jr., agency is the Sheriff's Department. 8. Daniel Queller Montes, investigating agency is the California Highway Patrol. Edgar Cortez Quintana, investigating agency is the California Highway Patrol. Daniel Bueno Jr., investigating agency is the Corcoran Police Department. Cameron Dangerfield, investigating agency is the California Highway Patrol. Angel Franco Serrato, investigating agency is the Corcoran Police Department. Nana Jeff Silva, the investigating agency is the Hanford Police Department and the Lemoore Police Department. Dr. Wiley Merle Elick, California Highway Patrol, investigated his case. Juan Pablo Santa Maria, investigating agency is the Lemoore Police Department. And Madeline Rose Cuevas, with the investigating agency being the Kings County Sheriff's Office. Again, I can't emphasize enough that we need to practice more safety on the roads. Stay at home when people are using substances, because each year, approximately half of our victims are people who were just driving on the highways, minding their own business, and they were struck by somebody under the influence of something. So I encourage each and every one of you to attend our quilt ceremony on April 21st at 6 p.m. at the Lemoore Civic Center. It's an opportunity for everybody in our community to recognize, acknowledge, and honor those that have passed away this last year. Thank you.
Stay home on rookie night, New Year's Eve.
Absolutely. But unfortunately, substance abuse and driving have become more prevalent. For example, in Dr. Elick's case, he was involved in a collision that occurred Sunday morning, and the defendant was under the influence. Yeah.
Any questions or comments for Sarah? Supervisor Bell.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, thank you, Madam DA, for bringing this, and also your besides the quilt ceremony, the candlelight ceremony that you have. Do you have a date on that yet? Or is that later in the summer?
That is, well, we do offer a candlelight vigil at the quilt ceremony.
At the quilt ceremony. Oh,
Yes.
okay, that's right. That's okay.
Yes.
And then I want to thank you for a tremendous amount of work you did when it comes to Lorenzo Sanchez as well. And I know that you helped his mother, Julia, a lot, and a lot of support. And as you know, this morning, Assemblymember Macedo has her bill AB 2040 in committee this morning in the Capitol. And Lorenzo's mother's there for the bill, Lorenzo's law. And I texted her this morning some support, but at 10 a.m. she'll be giving testimony to that committee. So we wish her the best and look forward to tracking how that bill goes today. But that's a tremendous amount of work to even get there. And I've seen you stand side by side with her, as you do with all the victims. I've just been a part of this one. She's from Corcoran. So thank you, Madam Dean.
Thank you, Supervisor.
Anybody else? Oh,
Everybody in the county has done a phenomenal job honoring Lorenzo's death, and we're hoping to bring change, especially with those people who have lost their lives to juvenile killers. There just is not the consequences that are necessary to bring justice and honor to these victims' lives. Yeah.
Other questions, comments for Sarah? Anybody from the audience? Questions, comments? All right, I'll entertain a motion.
So moved.
Supervisor Verboen, Supervisor Thayer. Madam Clerk?
Joe Nevs,
Yes.
Richard Valley, Doug Verboen,
Yes.
Rusty Robinson, Robert Thayer.
Yes, so I have a question. You don't have to answer it now, but how many juveniles do we have in lockup for murder under the age of 18?
Under the age of 18? I don't know the specific detail. That's a probation question, but I believe there are over 20 juveniles that are in custody for murder-related charges. Yeah.
Thank you.
I just add to that too, and if I'm not mistaken, maybe, I don't know, maybe Leonard can brief us on one of these days. My understanding is that there's others, juvenile homicide defendants that are out on ankle monitor as well, out in our community, not in custody. And I don't know if that's still the case, or maybe those cases are adjudicated, but some of this crazy policy in California, it's just asinine that we are where we are. And we're seeing it work out in real time, that these kids are becoming the aggressor because it's gang structure, and it's a push to do this, and we're seeing what it's doing in our families and our communities. It's terrible. But thank you for being here for this.
You're welcome. Thank you, Supervisor. And I appreciate this board. You have been absolutely committed to juvenile justice in this county. And that's exactly what we need in order to regain peace in our community. So thank you.
We should, Madam Chair, Mr. Chair, we should get the letter of support for this bill. Hopefully it gets out of committee today, but the Lorenzo's law bill, we should bring that agenda and get that over to the Senate.
We'll take a look. Supervisor Rubin?
Yeah, so I think the Madam DA has an issue with the court system, not charging these 17-year-old juveniles as adults. These are grown men. We had a riot in our juvenile hall, and these are grown-ass men, physically fit, healthy, taking advantage of our staff with pepper spray, and they've in there for murder. And our judges here think they work for the state, but they get voted in by the people of Kings County. I think the people should understand that when they vote a judge in, that they work for our county, even though the state law says, you got to do these certain things. We stick up for our own here, and we're having an issue with that in the court system. So
Yeah. And if I
thank you
could,
very much for doing what you do.
if I could tack on to that, based on that riot, our office did end up filing criminal charges against 3 of the participants, Antonio Silva, Robert Barrios, and Xavier Navarez. And we did file a criminal complaint against them alleging felony violations such as assault on a peace officer, robbery, and using force or fear against a peace officer.
Because they can only have pepper sprays, all they have in there. And these are fully fit, healthy boys in there that are juveniles by age, but not by size.
They probably get more time for those new charges you filed versus the time for the murder, just based on what's going on with Prop 57, right? And that's part of what Lorenzo's mother's up there communicating to those elected officials about. And just from being around the last year and learning some of these things, like Super Boone Soup there said about the juveniles, they could be charged with murder, waiting for trial, but then they get out and go home for Thanksgiving or go home for Christmas and then come back. And a lot of victims don't know that. And when Lorenzo's mother found out about that, that's heartbreaking on that. And so I'm glad she has a day today in the Capitol building. And I know she's been waiting for a long time to be vocal.
Yeah.
And we have to help her. Thank you.
Madam Council, strike S from the record, please. Thank you, Supervisor Berman. So just in summary for the public, basically the gangs are encouraging the younger kids to do it because they get shorter sentences, right?
Yes.
And that's why we have an overwhelming number of people that are in for whether it's murder or attempted murder, right?
Yes.
Yeah. All right. Very good. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay. Moving right along. IT. I do not see a Devlin. Good morning. Good morning, Anthony.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Anthony Walecki, IT Department. Here today with a request for a master services agreement renewal with Cherry Road Technologies. On April 14, 2021, County of Kings entered into a 5-year master service agreement with Cherry Road Technologies to provide support to the Department of Finance for the PeopleSoft time and labor and PeopleSoft payroll systems. This agreement was for support of the existing system and ensured timely biweekly payroll and reporting for the County of Kings. Cherry Road Technologies incorporated steady state application support as a managed service designed to maintain, optimize, and support enterprise applications and after their initial implementation. It supports the Department of Finance for the PeopleSoft time and labor and payroll systems. It provides ongoing long-term functional and technical support to ensure applications remain stable, secure, and aligned with business goals. The
Annual cost of this agreement is $261,000. It's divided into 12 monthly payments of $21,750. $65,250 of which is included in the fiscal year 25-26 budget, and the remaining $195,750 is included in the requested budget for fiscal year 26-27. The new agreement has been reviewed and approved by County Council and Risk. And our recommendation is to approve the agreement for, approve the master service agreement with Cherry Road Technologies for the period of April 15th, 2026 through April 14th, 2027, and authorizing the purchasing manager to sign the agreement. And I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Any questions for Anthony? Supervisor Thayer?
No questions, just move to.
Second.
Okay, one moment. Do we have any questions from the public? Comments? All right, so I have a motion from Supervisor Thayer, and it looks like it looks like maybe a second from Supervisor Valley. Did you do that? Yes. Okay, Madam Clerk.
Joe Nevs.
Yes.
Richard Valley, Doug Verboon,
Yes.
Rusty Robinson, Robert Thayer.
Yes.
Thank you. All right. Next up. Tanya Russell. Good morning. How's your library?
My library's wonderful. We'd love for you guys to all come visit. Good morning, Chairman, members of the board, members of the public. Tanya Russell, Library Director, here to ask your board to adopt a resolution proclaiming next week, April 19th through 25th, 2026 is National Library Week. First celebrated in 1958, National Library Week is a nationwide observance sponsored by the American Library Associations and libraries of all types in April. With this year's theme of Find Your Joy, National Library Week is an annual celebration highlighting the valuable role libraries, librarians, and library staff have in transforming lives and improving the community. If I was to detail all the activities at the Hanford Branch Library and our Outer Branch Library in Kings County on a regular basis where you can find your joy, we would all be here quite a while. But I'd like to highlight just some of our reoccurring programs. And just to give you an example, I did ask one of the staff here, remind me what we do all the time. I know it was a page and on to the other side. But for our reoccurring programs at our branch libraries, they can vary from Maker Mondays, movie nights, chapter chat book club, story time, sit and stitch, chess club, cup of joe, family game time. Not to mention our mobile library, the Kimball, goes out to Lemoore on a regular basis while the library is closed for remodeling, in addition to visiting Lemoore Naval Air Station. This is just a portion of our activities. To give you another example for April, in honor of National Library Month and spring, we've had a spring break activity, stained glass butterflies in partnership with 4-H, held at all Kings County libraries March 31st through April 1st. We have a Spring into Reading virtual reading challenge. This is for adults also, and you can still sign up. Free Little Library unveiling at Corcoran on April 1st, Avenal April 8th, Stratford April 15th, Kettleman on April 22nd. And this Saturday is open mic poetry. We'll all be there emceeing for the community. For National Library Week, we have our annual Food for Fines program. I Love My Library Board, where patrons can fill out hearts indicating why they love their library, and book bingo. Pick up a bingo card at your local library, get 4 in a row, and win a free book. I walked out of my office the other day to find 2 teenagers going up and down the aisle with bingo cards trying to make us solve. Lastly, National Library Week is about staff. And during National Library Week, April 21st is National Library Workers Day. I brought a few staff with me here today. I am thankful and grateful for all library staff. Each library assistant, librarian, library executive secretary, department IT contributes to what makes our libraries great. And I am grateful for each and every one. And just to let you know, as the 4 of us walked in this morning, all of us talked about how we started as extra help. All of us, myself included. Though one of them reminded me that I started the year before she was born. Thank you for your time and attention today, and I ask the board to adopt the resolution proclaiming April 19th through 25th National Library Week here in Kings County.
So I have a question.
Sure.
Are we ever bringing back the turtle? When I was a kid, we used to go down there just to see the turtle.
We are not bringing back the turtle, unfortunately. Yeah, so.
Questions for Tanya?
Not a question, more a comment. Well, there might be a question in here that I know that the county, it's been a few years ago, and I think it was funded through like the Dolly Parton Foundations. That makes sense about.
So there is the Dolly Parton Imaginarium Library in the state of California received that grant money, and it is being distributed to the counties, unfortunately, and you can look it up in the news. There's a little bit of controversy at the state library right now with that program. So I'd say it's on hold,
Is it? Because
unfortunately.
we signed up and we still get,
Yeah,
we got our book the other day, which is just a great,
and you can.
okay.
For our funds, like coming to the county, there's been a little hiccup.
Yeah. And I just throw this out because that reading is just the foundation of everything else that life is built upon. And because if you can't read, you can't do math, you
Nope.
can't, and I've seen it through my own kids that were addicted to reading very early on in their age and their ability to, now as adults to navigate life and actually write appropriately and communicate effectively has just been instrumental. So thank you for what you do. And
Thank
I
you.
just wanted to say that was all.
Thank
Good
you.
stuff. Anybody from the audience? All right, I'll entertain a motion. Supervisor Neves,
Second.
Supervisor Thayer, Madam Clerk.
Joe Nevs.
Yes.
Richard Valley.
All right.
Doug Verboon, Rusty Robinson,
Yes.
Robert Thayer.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you, Tanya.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you to the staff too, for all the work you guys do with communities around the county, and extra help's the way to go. That's how I got my start as well. I used to sweep in the back, and but thank you guys. You guys do a lot of work. Thank you.
Talk to her about the turtle, please. I think it was the only one out of the group that I know of that had a tortoise or whatever it was, right? You guys probably pre everybody. Tanya, do you remember that?
I'm gonna age myself. I wasn't here for the turtle. I was here for the sloth. And the fish. Yeah, there was the stone sloth. I can tell the backstory another day. And I was here for the fish. The fish tank that leaked, I don't know, 40 gallons of water or so down into the basement. We don't have a fish tank anymore. Yeah, I've got some staff that wouldn't mind a library cat. Not you, but the other one. I would like a library dog. Probably multiples.
At least the library fleas.
No, we've had that issue without the dogs, so many years ago. But we'll talk about the turtle.
Thank you.
You could partner with animal services for a cat and dog. I'm just saying, and pet of the week, and just help them with their adoption processes.
I probably have some staff that would jump on something like that. Thank you.
Thank you. Morning, Matt.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Matthew Boyette, Assistant CEO, Kings County Administration. Just give you a little backstory as to kind of how we got here this morning. So December 16th, before we all left for closure, I was actually before your board to give you an update on our government center remodel project. Letting the board know that I'll be back in early 2026 with finalizing any and all upfront capital that we have to put towards the project and getting our debt service finalized. So with that, at the beginning of February, on February 3rd, I was before your board again, seeking direction as to what the board's thoughts were on the California Public Finance and California Community Housing Agency, what we refer to as CalPFA and CalCHA, what your direction was on some of that money. And so some of the discussions that were had at that time was the board would like staff to come back with maybe some percentage scenarios, maybe invest. There was some interest in using some of that money to buy down the debt service that we would have on our government center remodel project. Excuse me. There was discussion as to possibly setting up an enterprise fund for some ongoing long-term capital improvement and investment plans. And there was also a discussion about setting up a foundation similar to what the sheriff's office has over there. So with that, a couple of weeks later, KNN was actually before your board with a study session on an updated debt financing scenarios for our government center remodel project. Say that 5 times fast. Giving your board some scenarios on a 20, 25, and 30-year term with a couple of different provisions for cash down. There was a high cash and a low cash option there. So they essentially gave you 6 different options to look at. And then March 24th, the Cal PFA and Cal CHA Board of Directors actually allocated a total of $6 million to the Kings County General Fund, 2 of which was allocated from the Cal PFA Board of Directors, and $4 million was allocated from the Cal CHA Board of Directors. So that brings us to today. Which the recommendation that I have before your board this morning is to designate a total of $6 million in California Public Finance Authority and California Community Housing Agency funding across the options below. Board of Supervisors discretionary funding, the Houston Avenue Bridge Project, the Government Center Remodel Project, enterprise accounts for long-term infrastructure maintenance and replacement, or other. So with that, I'll save all of the other, details of projects or anything for the discussion. And then with that, that'll conclude my presentation. I'm happy to answer any questions you may have. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you. Comments, questions for Matt?
What is that? I guess I'll go first. Sure. Well, thank you to staff. Thanks for outlining how we got here. Thank you, Kara, for the recommendations, all the work and the background, the breakdown, percentages of the 6 million. If the board has an appetite for discretionary funding amongst our districts, there's a lot of good information in here. As you know, since 2015, we have sat at these boards when people are here for the Board of Supervisors, and then we go into closed session. We come back out once a month, and for these 2 committees, at that point, there's really nobody here. But the work that we've done across the state, we've helped a lot of counties up and down the state with really good projects. Dorms, housing, medical, we've done a lot. And our mission for these committees of the JPA, the PFA, and the Housing Authority of Kings County states, for the purpose of promoting economic, cultural, and community development opportunities that create temporary and permanent jobs, affordable housing, community infrastructure, and improve the overall quality of life in local communities. So, Mr. Chair, we've done that work statewide, and I'd like to have the conversation amongst the board today for taking this statement and applying it to the County of Kings and the 5 districts that we represent. I believe that if we spread out the money, I could be supportive of especially the Houston Bridge project. I see that as a priority, but I also want to have the conversation, see what the appetite would be. This was $6 million, and it's not to be taken lightly. We've worked hard for it. A lot of these meetings, this is revenue that has built up slowly over the years since 2015. I believe we're looking at this as one-time monies. So going out to my district, especially with an opportunity like in Home Guard, right? It's hard to figure out how we can be helpful to them. And so I reached out to them and I asked them what are their top 2 needs right now. And so the chairwoman of the Home Garden Community Service District has communicated to me that they need a generator for their water district. Generator costs $200,000. I was on the phone with the vendor a couple of days ago, and I asked him if we had a used one. And he has a used one for $47,608.35. That invoice is in the packet before you. Also, the park there, the Home Garden Community Park, summer's about to come up. The bathrooms are down, so the bathrooms have been closed. And so there's an invoice before you. We worked with a plumber to get his cost to do that service. That's $1,939.50. Corcoran Cemetery District. They came here about a month and a half. They met with Matthew, Eric from finance, myself, and they brought their new bookkeeper, two of their board members, their cemetery manager, and they were very honest about their financial condition. And they asked, at that point, they were looking for help to see if the county could craft some kind of annual contribution. I didn't think that the board had an appetite for that. They, what we're asking for today out of the $6 million is a one-time financial assistance to them for $100,000. That the board, they wrote a letter. That one didn't make it to the print today, but I have it in our county emails. Kira has a copy, Matthew has a copy, but I think that because last minute I called Matthew at 8:30 this morning and he went to go print these for me. And so, but that one's not in front of me, but we have a concrete, we asked. The last thing, Mr. Chair, very important, it's a piece of equipment from Corcoran Police Department. It is a, in front of you, you have the brochures. It's a thermoscientific Delta handheld analyzer. Our deputies have this piece of equipment. It's life-saving equipment. Every police department in the county has it. It's the invoice for that, Chief Ochoa from Corcoran PD sent it. It's $36,748.71. She broke this down. This is something that, as you know, our men and women on the beat, they pull someone over and there's a plastic bag there, and somebody opens that. We've had cops almost die or pass out for if it's fentanyl, and that stuff pops in the air, right? So what this does, I believe it's a laser. Officers are able to point at the bag, and it will tell you if it's cocaine, fentanyl, or whatever, so you don't have to open up the bag and expose officers on a pullover to that or testing back at the PD. So, Mr. Chair, the total that I'd like to respectfully ask the board today out of the $6 million, it's a small amount of $186,296.56. Again, all of these asks are represented in the form of emails, letters, that to make it official ask here before the board today. And so as we go on with the discussion, and I'm looking forward to hearing what your priorities are, either in your district or countywide, but I ask that you please respectfully keep this before we make any motions, just to work in the discussion. I'm not going to do any motions right now. I want to hear from the board. That's where I'm at right now, sir. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, so, about 16 years, well, 10 years ago, I met Michael up here and Scott Carper, and they were telling me about this program where we could actually make some little extra money on it. So we did a lot of investigative research and worked together with the past CEO, Chairman Larry Spikes. And my vision was to, just like the communities, we're short of funding all the time. We don't, we have a hard time getting our general fund up that we can do infrastructure projects for ourselves here at the county. And so my idea was to take this money, hold it till we get enough to use it to bring everybody back here on campus. And so $6 million is nothing to sneeze at. I mean, it'll help pay down the debt. So my idea would be to use it for the government center remodel project. But at the same time, Houston Avenue Bridge is staring at us, and I believe we can get full recap of funding with that within 2 years. Am I correct? From the Caltrans?
It's estimated about 3 to 5 years.
3 to 5 years. Government work. Anyway.
But it is in the queue to get reimbursed, yes.
Yeah, it's still in savings account at that time. It'd probably take 3 to 5 years to do our remodel project too. So those are my wishes. Government center remodel project. And then also, if we can, loan it to the Houston Avenue Bridge project, get that behind us, and then recapture the money as soon as possible. Thank you.
You're saying.
Thank you, sir.
Superintendent,
Let's go. I didn't interrupt.
I was, no, I'm not interrupting you. I just want clarification from you. You're something. So you're saying, Houston Avenue, bridge would go before the government center remodel because we'd get that money
Possibly, yeah.
back
Yeah.
and then put it to them.
Very good. Supervisor Therian?
Yeah, sure. So, I mean, we've had plenty of time to kind of think about this. Thank you for the options and the choices. I mean, this isn't a decision to make lightly, and I'll just kind of just share what my heart is. Similar, like what Supervisor Valley here, you know, some needs back in our communities and sections there that are super important. I know for me, one of the first things, you know, if you had discretionary funding, and we saw this tragedy fall out last Thursday over in Porterville, and you have a deputy that is dead, and you have a significant standoff with God knows how many rounds are fired at law enforcement, including at armored trucks that took significant impacts from a suspect's weapon. I can tell you that from personal experience in my years on the SWAT team and running it here locally, that our sheriff's office fought for years to get an armored truck, a Bearcat. And back when Larry Spikes was the CAO, we sat in his office for probably an hour. I think we just exhausted him to the point where he was like, okay, and this board graciously, you know, approved the finance for that Bearcat, and on its maiden voyage took fire from a suspect. And so I know that our sheriff's office is thankful that we have this piece of equipment, but it really needs to be two pieces of equipment. It needs to be two to do it safely, to keep human beings safe. I know that the city of Hanford is looking for help in securing a second rig for their use, and they do, and they help with the sheriff's office, and you know, so from a you know, a discretionary funding part, I mean, that's something that's near and dear, and I think it impacts public safety to a degree. So if there was money to be set aside, that would be an investment, I think, that would be worth doing. I too would put the Houston Avenue Bridge project above the remodel project, and I say that because that money it is kind of like kicking the can down the road a little bit. That you can, you know, we could throw the money to help offset the cost that the county is going to get hit for this bridge project, but it'll be reimbursed, and then we can kind of start addressing some of this other stuff. But there sounds like there's some immediate needs. This laser thing, the Supervisor Valley, it just shocks me that every law enforcement agency doesn't have one of those. That we continue to expose our personnel to the dangers of that. We saw the city of Hanford, a police officer went down. Thank God I didn't kill him. But his dog went down to exposure to fentanyl, and it's those pieces of equipment that you know, $6 million rolls around, and you can put it into an account, because we don't know what we don't know. We don't know what the needs are going to be in the future, and things that are impacting our communities in each of our districts. So I kind of like it over there. I say ultimately we just need to get in an account over here and start letting it draw interest. And if we want to throw it at the Houston Bridge project, I'm for that. I'm also to carve out, you know, what Supervisor Valley asked, and whether the board would want to carve out. I checked this morning. It's under $500,000 for a second Bearcat. I know that the sheriff's office. I talked with our undersheriff this morning. I talked to the sheriff as well. I know that fire has indicated the need of a rescue vehicle, and this is just one of those pieces of equipment. You'd be surprised the number of times that our Bearcat has left this county complex to get itself positioned in a pursuit that's occurring from San Francisco to Los Angeles, and we get that truck out there because, you know, shots are being fired at law enforcement, and having that second truck would be just something that if the board entertained it and they were going to start cutting some money away from this thing, that maybe we could throw a piece of money towards that. And that's all. Sure. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Supervisor Nance.
Yeah, I'm just going to stay with the Houston Avenue Bridge and the government center. These are all very important projects that I certainly wish we could fund them all, but we can't fund everything. And unfortunately, and we need to start prioritizing in a different manner, because even the Houston Avenue Bridge, it just continues to concern me, even anything with Department of Transportation, because we recently got the estimate on the 198 9th and a quarter overchange that, granted, we built the one in Lemoore for $19 million. Final cost ended up being $25 million. The ninth and a quarter is $144 million for that overcrossing. There's no way that we can ever finance that. And it's not what you make, it's what you spend. And Caltrans needs to figure that out at some point. I certainly want to prioritize the Houston Avenue Bridge because I missed that thoroughfare greatly. Even the last 3 years that it's been out of commission. And I'd like to certainly get that done, but sometimes I think we got to look at things. Do we really want to stay with the state on that? Because we could have probably fixed that thing for $3 or $4 million 3 years ago and just put a culvert in and move on. We continue to be held hostage by the state of California on road projects and safety projects and everything else that they throw in front of us that just continues to add money and time, of which we don't have either one. So it's a tough decision, but I think I'm going to just stay with the Houston Avenue Bridge and the government center remodel, and certainly hope that the money continues to flow in, that these organizations continue to be successful in the future, and begin to set up and prioritize funding, not on a Tuesday morning. So with that, thank you very much.
Very good. So for me, this is a financial equation for me. If we pay it down, if we don't split the baby, words of King Solomon, right? If we don't split the baby and we pay $6 million down on a $10 million note, you save $1.5 million. If you do it on a 30-year note, you save $5 million. Now, if we do the $10 million note versus the 30-year note, because of the length of the term, you can save $25 million. So a lot of the projects we're talking about, huge project. Love it, the Houston Avenue Bridge. I wish FEMA would step up to the plate and be a lot faster with that. My point is just that we need to use the money to essentially make money. And we're making money by losing less. We're saving money. So it's a huge thing. I mean, if you did a 10-year contract and you took the $6 million and bought it down, you saved $27 million. So that's where I stand on that. The other projects are very valuable projects, and I support many of them. But at the end of the day, it's a financial equation for me. My preference would be to not split the baby and to take the whole $6 million and put it towards the Kings County renovation project. Okay. Other questions, comments from Matt, from Supervisor?
Mr. One thing I'd add
Sir.
is, we're sitting here with $6 million in our pocket to play with however we want to do so. And I think the board should look within themselves and thank Scott Carper and Mike LaPierre for allowing us to be in this position to have money to spend. They could have chose any county in the state of California that was willing to do so, and they chose us. So that's a good position to be in. So here we are with $6 extra million that we need to find out what we want to do with it. So thank you again for allowing us to be here.
And also, I want to restate, I think it came up already, but if for some reason we're having trouble with this one and we need a little bit more time to digest, we can put this in an interest-bearing account to allow some time. Is that accurate?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I would actually recommend to just drop it into our reserves and let it earn interest. Currently in the bank account that was previously did not earn any interest.
All right. So other questions from supervisors or
Yes, Mr. Chair. So I appreciate all the board members weighing in, and we're looks like we're trying to shape something up here. If you look at the breakdown that staff put together in our background report, they broke down the whole $6 million. So if you just add up roughly what I'm asking for out of the $6 million, and if you throw in a $500,000 estimate on the Bearcat, $687,000. So on the chart, $687,000 out of the $6 million is probably only about 11% of this money. And again, when you go back to the mission statement, what we have done for other counties around the state, we should at least do for our own county, here countywide, versus just taking all of this money and putting it into the campus here. I could support the project, the bridge project. I like the idea of spending money that we're gonna get back, and then we can go tackle the government remodel with that money. I'm all for that, but I respectfully request that we also take a look at our county, and I have some valid requests here. Corcoran PD, small police department, what the chief relayed to me, and I confirmed it with their city manager. That just was not in their budget. The monies that she had that could have went to this, she got notified. Whatever detail it was, she had to spend money on refitting and getting every officer a bulletproof vest, and that's where the money went. And so this is a piece of equipment she wanted to get this year, and she can't. And I believe that 6 million, again, we all did the work. We all did the work, and knowing from day one, we also, as I appreciate that, we were given the opportunity to form these bodies. We also voted. We could have said no, and there was opposition from around CSAC leadership to vote no and to not form this. And I went against some friends who asked me to vote no, and I stand by the yes vote to form these. But we have to do some good with it, and so I think it's a good what's the word I'm looking for? I don't want to say a good deal, but a good compromise. Thanks, Duke. There, if we just took 11% out of 6 million, set aside for these requests, we can get the information from the sheriff on the Bearcat equipment, and then and bring all that back solidly. But that's where I would be. If you compromise 11%, Mr. Chair, then I do a yes vote on either the bridge or the remodel, depending on what the priority of the board is today between both those projects, because it sounds like it's going to lead to one of those.
Okay, thank you for that. I would only just say a couple of possible other avenues. What I've done in Armona is ask for earmark requests, and it's been pretty successful. I mean, we were able to get a couple $1 million for the backup well. I think fire headquarters was about $3 million. And then there's another one for the remainder of the backup well that's, I think, advancing, and it's another $3 million. So that's another way to achieve what you're doing. And then also, I'm curious, probably going to be upset with me for saying this, but Board of Supervisors has been very kind to my district. And I think last year you awarded me $100,000 for lights in Armona. And I have brought that up several times in Armona. The problem is they're reluctant to use that money because it can trigger a 218 election. And so there's a very good chance, yes, I'll bring it up, but my deadline is June 30th. And if I don't, that's $100,000 that's screwed up. And so that's something to consider. So my position is still to not split the baby so we can maximize the return, is my position. But I respect what you're saying. Yes, of course, particularly some of these non-incorporated areas, unincorporated areas. Yes, they need help. There's different ways to get the help.
Going back to the earmarks, we had 3 opportunities, and 2 out of the 3 were for your district, and I voted yes on the earmark monies for your district. We are doing a good job. If this was 18 years ago, I'd be having a different conversation today. But the board has also been good at my district as well, specifically Kettleman. And so that's why I'm saying with this 6 million, the majority, I'm fine. Where I wouldn't have been, I'm fine to put this money to either the bridge project or the remodel. But I would ask you to respectfully consider 11% out of the 6 million to go, so we can say we did something for our county. If we're asking the state for money and Congress for money, and we have an opportunity to help ourselves today, then why wouldn't we? And if not now, then when? So 11% of this money is small. And then I think with the rest of the money, we could accomplish what you would want to with the remodel or the bridge. Thank you for hearing me.
Very good. Okay.
I was just going to throw one more thing out too, because back to the remodel project, and it's there might prior 35 years with the county, at least the last 15 or so. I know we did a bunch of projects. Carrie can, I think, the lease revenue bonds on the jails and the HSA, and I know that these notes are in the very near future are going to fall off, and it's going to free up current payment value, if you will, towards other projects. And I'm not trying to knock because originally 4 months ago I was like, it'd be kind of nice to knock down the interest rate on this project in here, but this money does not come along like this very often. Where if it's sat in an account somewhere and we need a little bit to give a boost. KCO is working its backside off trying to get this unit of theirs built up down at Houston and I'm sorry, down at Hanford on Motor Road and 10th Avenue. I know King's Commission on Aging is looking for places to cook food for those who are impacted and can't get outside of their home. And there's just a lot of things in the community that we don't know what we don't know until they start to surface when funding like this becomes available. And I just think that to throw it onto a big capital project, although I get the whole savings of it, I know that this other money is coming off of the books in the very near future, and we can readjust what our target is on that. And again, and I'm not trying to, I'll just say this, that I'm thrilled that we now have a CEO instead of a CAO, and that through leadership of one to the department heads, there is a new accountability that goes across countywide in the way that a big organization should be ran. And I'm proud to be a part of this board that helped make that be. But with that comes, the direction on helping forge and move forward with these big capital projects. But again, I just throw back out that this money doesn't come along like this very often, and it's a great opportunity to help throw on some things. I throw one more thing out because I know on our consent calendar we're sending money down to a healthcare facility down in Los Angeles, a skilled facility, and we're throwing money down into Los Angeles for a skilled facility because there's people who live in Kings County who were shipping to LA County for treatment. And it's like at some point in time or another, some entrepreneur in, whether it's even through the county system on how we bring business into this county, can develop these types of programs here locally. And it's money like that you could be like, hey, you need some startup costs, let the county help thwart that, and we can save $700,000 rather than send it to LA County, invest back into our own people. And that's just where Robert's vision kind of is, and it's big picture. And with that, I'll stop talking.
Yes, sir.
Be ready to turn the motion. I'd like to take a
Not quite. These guys have to talk, and I have one final comment. Go ahead.
Mr. Chair, I would just remind that even though we have 6 million before us today, we were very conservative and we left 2,259,016 in the in these accounts. Is it Carrie? Is that just for PF? Do I have that total right between Cal PFA and the other agency? Is it the 2 million or was it more than 2 million?
Yeah, it was 2 and 4.
2 and 4.
Two from PFA and 4 from CalCha.
Okay, so we're being very fiscally responsible, and we have a good amount of money still there. We didn't zero that out, zero those accounts. No, yeah, we're gonna still make it. We're still make money. Good point. And so, but I'll wait, Mr. Chair, until you're ready to take a motion.
Very good. Anybody else? Okay. My last and final point is just going to be 6 million saves me 5. All right. Anybody from the audience? Yes, sir. Chief.
Morning, John Chamberlain, Kings County Fire Chief. Okay, so obviously I'm not a policymaker. A lot of tough decisions have to be made by your staff. I would just tell you that it was about 2 months ago, Sheriff, that we sat there and did the HSGP or EMPG programming. Okay, so we sat down. Rosemary Ron also was on the Committee for Public Health. The only law enforcement besides sheriff that represented themselves with a request was Hanford PD. None of the other local municipalities asked for anything. So I struggle when I hear that they don't have a piece of equipment they need, but we could have programmed that into our budget and our allocations for grant. So as you're looking at spending that, it's rough because we look at it all. We have other needs as well, but there is opportunity there outside of this particular bucket of money that they could reach out for that. We are about to reprogram, I believe it's 4 thermal imaging cameras to Lemoore, because we actually have money that came in on the back end that Kings County Fire is going to buy some additional thermal imaging cameras for. We're going to keep them in the Kings County pocket, and we're going to repurpose them over to Lemoore still as our asset to their PD specifically, so they can do their wide area searches, stuff like that. So we're constantly looking for opportunity to utilize what we get. But I just wanted to put that on your radar. Please encourage those local departments to actually look at everything that's available, not just come directly to you or the county for that thing. Because we have, I mean, I'll be honest with you, fire, we have a ton of needs. And I look at all this thing and I'm kind of like, okay, the incorporated cities, it's a little different animal. They have their own budget, they have their own operating funds. So I just wanted to put that on the radar in the back end. There are other buckets available to them outside of just this type of thing. So if you have any questions for me, I'm happy to answer them.
Yeah, I do have a question. What's the outreach to them? What's the level of outreach? How would a Corcoran chief, police chief not be aware of the opportunity?
My understanding,
37,000.
sure. My understanding is that OES basically sends us out to everybody within the area, and that the law enforcement agencies just choose not to participate. I did ask that specific question. Hanford literally is the only law enforcement agency that submitted any request outside of what the sheriff had. And Bearcat was on there for their Hanford request. Obviously, the bucket of money is not large enough to cover that. So we could grab it all and put it towards it, and somebody have to match. But my point being is, as we look at dissecting that bucket of money, but they are notified. It's they just either choose not to participate or they don't send a representative.
Yeah.
But
And there's a ton of ways. I get it, but is there a District 2 rep? The chief came to me, and just like if you come to me, which prior chiefs before you come here for fire engines through community development block grant funds, which I usually vote no on that.
Right.
Those monies are for infrastructure for communities, but votes have passed here, and many a fire engine has been purchased through that. So, I don't think anyone wants to have a request for funding looked at through the lens of, well, you could get it somewhere else. This is a viable source, and it is a fair ask, chief.
And I understand. I'm not the policymaker directing. I just want to make sure that if you are asked, please make sure that they've reached out and done that, because we send that out and we keep up on it.
I wasn't aware of your committee, and I have no clue what you're talking about.
Okay.
Okay.
I understand.
Be honest with you.
Nope. No, I appreciate it. I just want to make sure you were aware of it on the back end, because all they have to do is put it in writing and we consider it. It's not a problem. So thank you.
Thank you, chief.
If I recall, chief, it's like 200,000 a year, right?
Correct. In that general area. Well, there's two different sides of it. There's EMPG and HSGP or HS, whatever it is. At any rate. Yeah. It's a couple 100,000 for one, and it's another like 130, 150 on the other bucket. One of it specifically for planning, but others equipment and procurement. Honestly, the funny part about it is law enforcement gets the first 25%, and then fire and law get to fight over the remaining 75%. So so they actually have a cut specifically for the law enforcement side. So
That's how we got the sheriff's office got the command post years ago, and it was just kind of,
correct.
$70,000 a year, I think, over a number of years until.
Right.
And then I knew we threw a Bearcat on at one point in time, but I was told this morning that maybe that money was rediverted to something different.
Yeah. So, yeah, I just want to put that on the radar on the back end. If just encourage them to participate, and we'll more than happily try and meet their needs on the smaller end items for you.
I don't know if it's a question for you or the sheriff, but is a Bearcat a revenue maker for the county? If we invested in
Definitely
one?
not my question.
Yeah. No, sir, it's not a revenue maker. And just to add to this Homeland Security grant, I think what discourages some of the PDs from applying is because the funding cycle is so far out. So like when I was helping Sarah at the DA's office, we got selected for that Homeland Security grant for child sexual abuse material, but it was $30,000 or so. And it was just strictly for computer products, hard drive and phone forensics. And that still hasn't been funded to this day when we were granted that a year and a half ago. So I think that's what discourages these local PDs from applying. And I wasn't aware that Corcoran needed this piece of equipment, or I might have made more of an effort to invite them to, put in the information they needed for these Homeland Security grant funds. But like I say, the funding process is so far out, as Supervisor Thayer knows from, it was a process. Okay, we'll put a piece of it for this year and then a piece next year. And usually it's a gentleman's agreement with all these PDs. If their radio infrastructure is terrible, Supervisor Neves remembers that, okay, we have to address the portable radios, that they just weren't effective. So it's kind of the immediate need, but then the tragedy of it all is the funding cycle is so far out with the federal Office of Emergency Services. Am I saying that right, Chief? That's the funding piece to that. Correct. But it takes 12 months to 18 months before that funding actually comes through. So,
And that's too long to wait. And I think maybe the chief didn't approach you guys.
correct, yeah.
Because
Yeah.
from talking to Chief Ochoa, she thought she had the funding. Again,
Right.
It sounds like she had to prioritize the bulletproof vest for
Over
for
that
all
piece of
these
equipment,
issues.
yeah.
And
And-
what do
and-
those run, Sheriff? Like $4,000?
Oh, yeah, and then and they're on 5-year cycles. So if you have 20 of your officers that need replacement, you have a huge expense. And then you won't have that expense for several years, depending on your turnover. But depending on what stage you are in the cycle, you could have a huge expense all at once. So
And
that's the piece.
Thanks, Sheriff, Mr. Chair, and like the Sheriff pointed out, and even earmarks, right? And the earmark is what, another 14 months away for the next opportunity. I don't want a Corcoran police officer to drop or get hurt while they're waiting for a $37,000 piece of equipment that we could help them with today. That is a fair ask to help. That is part of the county, that's part of District 2. And so the sooner they could get this equipment, the better. Again, they're the only PD in Kings County that does not have this piece of equipment. Before respectfully ask for a motion for your concerns, could we ask the CEO or Matthew a fiscal question on, let's just say, the board supported 11%, 687,000 set aside, right? And that leaves 5.3 million on the table today, not counting the 2 million plus that is in there. So that would still be 7 million, and we're still making money to take care of the remodel or the bridge. What does 687,000 put a dent? Does it hurt you in fiscal planning for either of these projects? Is that a big amount of money to you? Is that something you could work with? Appreciate any information for the board starts with.
Yeah, I can't speak to the impact that that'll have on maybe the overall financing costs or maybe the annual debt service payments. That would have to come from K&N to kind of work up some sort of scenario. I can't just do that, off the fly. There's a lot of variables in there. I'm not sure what the difference or what the actual fiscal impact would be at this point.
Okay, so then I just got to look at it from my simple mind. 687,000 out of over 8 million left on the table is very small amount to ask on there. So I was looking for a more professional way of saying that, or maybe any knowledge that you already have on how you would fund either of these projects, the bridge or the remodel, and what the small amount would impact.
So you're saying about 5.8 million, it still does not cover the whole entire cost of the Houston Bridge or the courthouse remodel, which we knew that the remodel was not going to be covered, but it was going to be a funding source for either project.
To answer your question more specifically, you have to take into consideration the time value of money. And when you take in that consideration, the compounding feature there is huge. It's millions. So that's the part you got to consider. You might look at it as a small amount today, but over the course of 30 years, it's a big number.
Can respect that. I'm asking you to take a look at and help me out here with the big impact on quality of life for not only these officers, but for people in our county. I won't even say my district. It's our county. We're talking summertime coming. I'd like to see the kids in that park in Home Garden, being able to use the bathrooms, to this generator for their water district, so keep quality of life going. All of that is part of our mission statement. And again, we've helped everybody else. Looking for a small amount here. And if it's $100,000 out of my ass, that was the largest for the cemetery. If I got to take a haircut on that and lower that to 50,000 in assistance to earn your respectful yes vote, then I would do that as well. So, but what I will do is take a shot so we can move it along. If you're ready, Mr. Chair, can I?
Not yet. They still have to speak.
Okay.
Kind of opened the door, but when you start talking about Corcoran Cemetery, I start talking about audits. When's the last time they had an audit?
So you got a new bookkeeper, they got a ton of problems, and I'm not here to protect them on that. And we know of criminal investigation, everything. But we also have a new board we appointed. The gentlemen, the people on that board have been very open with us. Again, they came to the county, they laid it all out. They didn't have no punches. They took some hits with some bad characters. And they're in a bad position. So what do I do as a rep? Do I say, that's your problem? Or we try to help them? It's a cemetery in our county that might go on and they're asking for some help. And so,
okay, I think our points have been made. Let's ask the audience if there are additional points or questions, comments public would like to make. Is there anything online, Madam Clerk? I'll entertain a motion.
I'll put a small one in. I'm not gonna, in this motion, I'm not gonna prioritize either the bridge or the remodel, but it sounds like that's where the board is leaning towards one of them. But what I will like to do is respect what's right with you supervisors there to move forward with add 500,000 to my ask of the 187,000. I'd like to make that motion that the board out of this money would set aside 11% of this money just to round it to $687,000 to take a look at if a Bearcat is necessary through the sheriff and get more information on that, but to help these folks quickly with the invoices that I already have here and concrete of what it would cost to help them is a small amount of money. And so I just do a motion for set aside that money and then I'd be ready to support any priority that the board would have on these two major projects.
Okay, so I have a motion on the table. Do I have a second?
I'll second that motion.
Okay, second. All right, Madam Clerk.
Joe Nevs,
No.
Richard Valley, Doug Verboon,
No.
Rusty Robinson,
No.
Robert Thayer.
Yes.
Mr. Chair, would it help if I cut the 100,000 from the cemetery down to 50?
You know, I think if you want to make a motion, you can certainly do that. I think we've had plenty of discussion on this issue. Okay. So Supervisor Verboon has a motion on the table. What is your motion, sir?
The motion is to designate money for the government center remodel and possibly the Houston Avenue Bridge project within reason, but we need to bring it back. That's the money.
Okay, motion on the table.
Which one is your priority?
You want to restate?
Bridge only if we get reimbursed with a certain amount of time.
Super Ben, I support that. Can I ask you for a friendly amendment just to do the 37 for the narco? That'd be not only asked for clerk and PD.
Let's stick to my.
Okay.
Okay, so we have a motion on the table. Do I have a second?
Second.
Supervisor Neves? All right, very good. Madam Clerk.
Joe Nevs,
Yes.
Richard Valley,
Come back to me.
Doug Verboon,
Yes.
Rusty Robinson.
Yes.
Robert Thayer.
No.
Richard Valley.
37,000 out of all this money. Madam
Vote, sir.
CAO, we have an opportunity, before I vote, just more information. The money that we have in reserve is $2+ million. Then, I would like to pull out part of that money then and bring that back up for a vote, before the board. That's a lot of money we put aside. And all on the campus is
Supervisor, I apologize, but we're right in the middle of a vote.
yeah. I'm going to vote yes because I'm going to show that I appreciate the support of this board for the work in Kettleman and the curb gutter and sidewalks. I respect your priority, but I need to find a way to help out with this, and so I'm gonna vote yes, Mr. Chair, but respectfully to figure out a way to bring back the SAS. It's important.
Understood. And all the comments were appreciated. And thankfully, this was a robust debate. Okay. Thank you, Matt.
Thank you.
We appreciate it. All right. Well, so we're going to move on to study session. And so you want to get us started with that?
Sure.
Veronica?
Good morning, Mr. Chairman and members of the board. I'm Veronica Mello, Administrative Analyst here at the County Administration Office. Before you this morning is a brief presentation from Patrick Blacklock. He's the President and Chief Executive Officer of Rural County Representatives of California. He will provide an overview of the organization's proposed strategic plan.
Good morning, Patrick. Welcome and thank you for making the trip.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and members, and I appreciate the opportunity to be here today and present a little bit about RCRC, but also hopefully to hear from you, your questions and feedback. And I really want to encourage that right from the start, because part of the value for me is to hear what's happening here in Kings County and to be able to carry that back to the team back in Sacramento. So I hope that you'll stop me anywhere along the way where you've got a question, want to provide a little feedback. I don't know if I click the slides or if it's okay, next slide. Thank you. So today what I'll do is I'll provide a little background, not only on RCRC, but also some of our affiliate entities. So I'll start off with some of the legislative things that are happening, and then I'll finish up with several of our affiliate entities that you see along the bottom on that slide. If you can go to the next slide. But I wanted to start with our strategic plan. Our board adopts 3-year strategic plans. You can see some of the topics here on this slide. Hopefully none of them are a surprise to you. Some of those that are taking high priority this year include, for example, health services and mandates. I'm going to talk a little bit about that under local control. And then I'll also talk about some of our wildfire resilience efforts as well. But I want to draw your attention to the vision that the board has set for us, which is to be both their advocate in Sacramento and in DC. And then secondly, to be their innovative service provider, and think of RCRC as the entrepreneurial arm of rural counties. Whenever there's a challenge too big for a small county, they'll come to us to see if we can get economies of scale through 40. And over the years, that's led to us creating a number of both public and private entities to do that work. And so when I get to the affiliates, I'll talk a little bit more about that. Next slide. So on this slide, again, I'm hopeful that these topics are not a surprise to you. Listed under advocacy, what I want to focus on are those under key topics. And in particular, there are 3 ad hoc committees that our board has formed this year. They do that on high priority topics to update our policy and really drive our legislative priorities. And so you'll see that one of them is recruitment and retention of public employees. Some of our counties, I know one had a 100% vacancy rate in their behavioral health therapists. Back when I was a CAO, it was common to have anywhere from a 6 to 9% vacancy rate, but we've had a number of counties of 20% vacancy rates. So it's been a challenge. They're looking at, are there policy changes that could be made to help counties with recruitment and retention? The second ad hoc committee is our predator management ad hoc committee. It really came about because of the wolf situation in the North State. But I know that, as I mentioned to your department head leadership team a week or so ago, one of those wolves has made it all the way down to LA County and is now, as I understand it, back in Inyo County. So may very well have touched Kings County on his travels. I don't know, but
Passed through Tulare County.
exactly. And so I know that they are spreading their range beyond the North State, obviously, but also you may have heard there's a bill to reintroduce grizzlies to California. That's particularly challenging for us, and we're opposed to it because the Resources Agency has acknowledged that they don't have the staff to effectively manage the wolf population, let alone a new predator like grizzly bears, and then mountain lions as well.
We need to tell them that this started in Yellowstone. These are protected wolves with monitors on them that ended up in California on their own. And they passed through Tulare County. They got them on video. Now they're in LA County. So we can't touch them. It's illegal. Absolutely. They can come in and murder your sheep or your animals right by your doorstep of your house.
Yeah, in one of our counties, Sierra County and Sierra Valley, they had over 80 head of cattle in about a 1.5 period. They ended up having to euthanize the wolves because they had become wholly dependent on livestock in that situation.
We should have Supervisor Nedco also track the grizzly bears.
Yeah, absolutely. And then the third ad hoc I want to mention is our Sustainable Groundwater Management Act. I want to thank Supervisor Burboon. He's been a very effective leader at our board discussions and on the SGMA ad hoc around SGMA and helping educate and inform all of us on that. That ad hoc is, I think, had a couple of meetings and is well on its way to developing updated policy around it that may inform legislation. And then a couple of other things I wanted to mention off of this slide. One is state mandates. Many years ago, there was a pretty well-rehearsed process for submitting claims, which you must first do before you can have a mandate approved for reimbursement. Once it's approved for reimbursement, once a single county submits a claim, then once it's approved, all counties can be reimbursed for that mandate. But maybe 10, 15 years ago, that effort started dropping off. We as counties weren't as effective about submitting those claims. We've now brought that back to life, and we are coordinating with our big county colleagues to make sure that we're hitting all of those. You have from 1 year when you first trigger a cost to submit a mandate claim. Then the statute of limitations closes that door. So we need to get those claims in that time frame. We, RCRC, has a contract with somebody to file those claims on behalf of our small counties. And so we're working in concert with the Santa Clara counties and others to make sure that we're covering all of the potentially reimbursable claims. The second piece of that for our small counties, though, is so it's an approved claim. Are you filing for reimbursement? So we pulled some data from the state controller's office, and the short answer is not everybody is. So even on that front, we've got some work to do. So we're evaluating, can RCRC help our counties then make sure they're getting everything they're due as well on that front. So a lot of work happening around state mandates, more to come on that front, but I wanted you to know that's a priority for us. And then two others I'll mention briefly. One is our jail medical services study. Kings County is a part of that, and basically it's looking out longer term. Are there more effective options for providing jail medical services than the current methodology, which traditionally has been pretty reliant on a single contract provider for over 30 counties? We see a few folks coming into that space now, but we know that costs have been jumping exponentially. I think one county had a 40% increase from one contract renewal to the next one on jail medical services. So we've partnered, we have 5 regions, 25 counties within those regions, working together to bring in consultants to evaluate what does it look like if you were to design a jail medical services system that meets the national accreditation standards, so hopefully limiting risk as a result of that, and what are the most cost-effective ways to deliver it. So in the end, you'll get a financial feasibility analysis that looks at an array of options to hopefully put you in a very informed decision in terms of what should that long-term future look like on that front. So that one is underway. And then lastly, Kings County is a CMSP county, County Medical Services Program. I think you had a discussion here in the chambers not too long ago with CMSP, with CSAC, excuse me, around HR1 and the challenges that are rapidly heading our way as folks potentially drop out of Medi-Cal and become a county responsibility again under Welfare and Institutions Code Section 17,000. We're working closely with that coalition to make sure that CMSP's advocacy ask is front and center with the legislature. Maybe calling upon you for help, as I'm sure CSAC will as well, as those conversations ensue. I'll come back to the Senator Hurtado bill in a minute under the affiliates because we have one that's specific to that topic. Any questions on our advocacy efforts before I switch gears?
Yeah, I have one, HR1. So we just got back from the CSAC retreat, and it appears that RCRC is also in support of that position, right?
Oh, yes. Yeah. Yeah, we're staying very closely aligned, not only with CSAC, but with CMSP. We help CMSP in formulating their data, their ask very early on, so they would be prepared. I think we have 34 of our 40 counties are in CMSP's 35 counties. So it's a big coalition of our group that is behind. I think CMSP is around 330 million annually, if I'm recalling correctly, for what the need might be. So working very closely with them in alignment with CSAC.
And then another one. So if you look for dollars, I think number one for the state's budget is the high-speed rail train, but number 22 is wildfire mitigation. And so I just want to hear what RCRC's position is on the wildfire mitigation. One component of that, which is the grazing animals, that's one of many. But the point there is if it were addressed properly, then our insurance rates would go down.
I think maybe a word is frustration in terms of how we feel about wildfire monies. One way to look at it is the state set a goal of treating 1 million acres a year. We've never reached that goal. And even reaching, I think, roughly 700,000 acres per year requires substantial state and federal subsidies. They're now declining. So those monies that you talked about are already starting to reduce and decrease. We've never reached the goal of treating 1 million acres a year. In fact, the California Air Resources Board says that needs to be doubled to 2 million acres a year if we're to convert our forests back to effectively sequestering carbon. So we've got a long ways to go. It's not necessarily headed the right way, and it's frustrating, but I'll talk in a minute about one of our affiliates and some of the work we're doing around wildfire resilience and forest health. Next slide. So I'm going to move relatively quickly through our affiliates, but please do stop me anywhere. One of our public agencies is Golden State Finance Authority. It's a joint powers agency made up of the same 40 counties, and it provides, I think, infrastructure financing on a number of fronts, primarily down payment assistance. If you have someone in your community that's looking to buy a home and they need a little extra help with down payment under a federally backed mortgage, there's two ways they can get it: a family member or a governmental housing authority. Golden State Finance Authority is one of those, and you can see there's been over 600 individuals or families in Kings County that have received that assistance. National Home Buyers Fund does that same work on a national level. GSFA, as we call it, also does work to fund our forest resilience efforts, our broadband efforts. It provides grants to, or loans, I should say, line of credits to small CSDs, parks districts, others that when they get a grant, but they don't have the cash flow necessarily to put the costs out there first to get the reimbursement, we have a line of credit where we can provide them the initial cash so they can take advantage of the grant and then get that reimbursement. So that's some of the examples of what GSFA does.
Question for Carrie. So Carrie, where does that come up in our process? In the hiring process, do we mention this program?
Oh, if you go to the next slide, I can speak directly to that one. So Golden State Finance Authority a couple of years ago developed a program specific for county employees. It's called our Assist to Own program. And if you're a Kings County employee and you want to buy a home, you can get 3.5% down payment assistance at zero cost. What that means is interest never accrues, payments are never due. The principal just sits there as a second until either you sell the home, at which point only the principal is due again because there was never any interest accruing, or at the end of 30 years, you would need to refinance or do something differently. You've had 4 employees take advantage of that in Kings County, at least the most current data I've seen. But again, if there's a Kings County employee that wants to buy a home and needs a little bit of help with down payment, our board put this in place to help with recruitment and retention. GSFA pays the cost essentially of the money. The employee, there's never any cost in terms of no interest ever accrues. It's just the payment, or the principal sits there, no payments are ever due.
Is this presented as part of the hiring packet?
So actually, we do advertise it. We were sending individual emails. Now we include it in our newsletters. So, and HR mentions it as well in new hire orientation.
Next slide. So coming back to, Golden State Connect Authority, that's our newest public agency. It's a joint powers agency, again, formed by the same 40 counties 5 years ago to bring high-speed fiber out to rural communities. And it was, I like to say, it was formed with a budget of zero about 5 years ago, or less than 5 years ago. Within a year, we pulled down 19 million to do last mile engineering, including in Kings County. And most recently, we've pulled down 185 million in construction monies. We've paired that. We went out to the financial markets and we were able to get entities like Vanguard and Franklin Templeton to put in another 110 million. So we're going to be doing around a $295 million construction program, with our first groundbreaking actually scheduled for April 30th. So we're pretty excited to get that underway. These are the counties that have been initially funded. Look at that as the foundation. As that system gets built, the idea is that system revenues, more grants will begin to expand further and further out. It'll be a publicly owned open access system. That means that the public agency puts the fiber in the ground of the home, but then will allow multiple private ISPs to use it. So you as a homeowner or a business will have options in terms of which ISP you want to use, which price point best meets your needs. So look for more of that to come in the future. Next slide. And then coming back to forest resilience, Golden State Natural Resources is a 501c3 nonprofit that we formed, I think now almost 10 years ago to really, I mentioned that 1 million acres needed in treatment. This agency was formed by our counties to help state and federal agencies reach that 1 million acres. Our 2 primary focus areas, one is that with the Forest Service, we're helping to get more projects to the approval phase. So we're actually doing the work of completing NEPA, doing the work of being the project manager. We just completed a 30,000 acre project in the Modoc National Forest where we did all the work to get it to the record of decision phase. So some of that is helping be a force multiplier for the Forest Service. But the problem is what you see on that slide. That is a picture I took up in the Modoc National Forest of a pile of small diameter biomass that's left over after a forest thinning project. That in the background, the project's already been done. That's what it looks like post forest thinning. There's a little bit of roundwood on that truck to go to a mill, but pile after pile after pile of that size and scale are along that road that will either be burned in place or decompose in place. So if we can find a commercially viable outlet for that biomass, then those revenues can be reinvested back into the forest, and those monies can begin to replace some of those state and federal subsidies that are needed to get more forest treatment done. We're not there yet. Our goal is to de-risk the supply side. So we bought 2 sites, one in Lassen County, one in Tuolumne County. We're just finishing the CEQA on them. Think of those as the aggregation sites. We'll take wood chips in, chip them on site, and then ship them by rail to a potential user. And we're going to evaluate an array of users from Kern County in the south to Southern Oregon to Reno to the Bay Area. And we're working with Lawrence Livermore Labs to identify what the most likely potential users are. Think alternative fuels, energy production with the carbon sequestration component, maybe an alternative wood product. We're agnostic towards the use. We just want to work with the state, work with Lawrence Livermore and others to find an entity to come to California that will have enough value from the product that they can pay to bring those wood chips by rail into their facility. So that part of the piece of the puzzle is probably still a few years out. Our goal is to de-risk the supply side. So we've taken care of one of the challenges for them as this project.
Are those federal firefighters that thin the forest and leave that pile like that?
It's usually Forest Service managed projects, not necessarily firefighters, but it could be a private timber operator that does the work under contract. It could be a RCD. It could be a fire safe council. It could be, there's an array of entities doing the work in the forest. The problem is there's very few commercial entities that can pay enough to haul that material to their facility. You have a few folks that use it for electricity production in a very close distance, but even there, the CPUC recently let the program expire that was paying them the higher utility rates. In fact, we're involved in litigation to hopefully get that brought back to life. So for that reason, because there's not a commercially viable outlet that can afford to transport it, they sit there. I think Tuolumne County has, not necessarily all that big, but has over 60,000 piles in the forest in Tuolumne County, just to give you a sense of the numbers. So it's a challenge. It's recognized by the state that it's a challenge. I think what's frustrating again is that there hasn't been enough momentum as there needs to be to solve it as we sit here today.
So by you guys doing your own NEPA, how much time does that save?
Well, for the Forest Service, it just wouldn't have happened in all likelihood. They would not have had the staff to do it if we hadn't done it. So it's not even just time saved. It's just that project wouldn't have happened. So now we're able to move towards the implementation phase of that project versus without us there doing the NEPA, it wouldn't be happening at all. Next slide. So just a couple more to cover. One of them, coming back to the Senator Hurtado bill, is our Environmental Service Joint Powers Authority. This is made up of 26 rural counties, including Kings County, and this is where waste management directors, waste management staff, public works staff come together quarterly to navigate CalRecycle, the State Water Resources Control Board, and the associated regulations, and to do so together. I don't pretend to be the expert on that particular bill. That's John Kennedy on our team. Thank you, Supervisor Boone, for getting him connected with your staff. I talked to him about a week and a half ago. I think at that point he was still waiting to see the print language. I'm sure he's seen it now. I just haven't had a chance to connect with him. But that would be the next step, is to get John, who knows how those 26 counties are thinking around it, in the room with your team and with Senator Hurtado's staff to figure out how do you thread that needle to make sure that the counties that are represented through ESJPA they benefit too from whatever legislation ultimately goes forward. So more to come on that front. And as I mentioned, John Kennedy is our expert in that field.
So the question that I have through third-party information, but I'm taking advantage of your presence. Sure. Told that you guys are already thinking about opposing our bill. Is that true?
It could potentially be, depending on the policy of ESJPA. And so I think that's why John wanted to connect with the team and with Senator Hurtado's staff to avert that, to see if there are some language changes that could be made to address the concerns of the ESJPA members and RCRC members, to do that on the front end, so we're not in a position to have to oppose.
Summarize what's your opposition concern?
That's right. I'd have to have John Kennedy there. I'm not the expert. I hadn't even seen bill language when I was last talking to him about it, so I don't even have the bill language to respond to. I know that John was hoping to connect with the senator's office, with your staff, to work through all that.
Environmental concern?
I think it is the concerns to the impact of other landfills in the state.
I think also it's the fact that we don't have all the bill language yet. So we need to get the proper bill language in there. So this is the time that we speak up to get the language in, so we all support it.
Yeah. I mean, I think his goal was to approach it collaboratively, figure out if there is a way to, maybe through some modified language, to address the concerns that might come out of ESJPA.
Other impacts to landfills would be what? Loss of business?
I wouldn't even want to speculate. I'd want John Kennedy to answer those questions, because again, I'm just not the expert in that field.
But you know enough to say that currently you guys are opposing this bill.
I haven't talked to John to know what our position is of today. When I last talked to him, it was a week and a half ago, and he hadn't even seen the bill language at that point.
I don't think the bill language exists yet. We're still.
No, it does. It does. And yeah, we're going before environmental committee on the 22nd. And there's language, and I spoke to the senator last night as well on this bill. But as we're a part of your organization, and Supervisor is doing a good job, and he's being very active there with you guys. I would ask you that we do have some early talks, because it's disappointing to hear about your opposition. And again, that's third party telling me you guys already making up your mind to oppose this bill.
What has to go to board to be voted on, correct?
Well, it depends. There may already be policy on point that came out of the ESJPA. So I think that's what John is trying to avert, is to make sure that the bill doesn't move forward in a form that automatically puts it in conflict with policy adopted by either ESJPA or CRC. I know he reached out to the team down here a couple weeks ago. I know that he wants to work through that and see if there's a good landing spot.
Yeah, that's what I hope for, because as you saw the discussion earlier on the small amounts of revenue we have, that bill creates more revenue here for the county through hazardous waste tax revenue. And that bill is looking at a possible increase of up to 800,000 annually per year that comes here, right? We use that money for firefighters. We use that money. So percentage of that money is going back to my district, Kettleman City. We're doing some good work there, and we have some plans with that revenue. We do capital projects with that money. That's a bill that's very important to us, important enough that the board voted 5-0 to co-sponsor that bill with Waste Management. Since we're an active member with the organization, I would hope that we would have a talk before there's any rumors of opposition just right off the bat. And I'll leave it at that. Thank you.
Next slide. So our last entity, 501c3, is the Rural Advancement Institute. It was something that had been around for a long time, but the board brought it back to life about 2 or 3 years ago to do two things. One is education, focused primarily on urban legislators. This was out of recognition that the majority of votes of the legislature are legislators that come out of either the LA Basin, San Diego, or Bay Area, and are likely generally unfamiliar with rural needs and interests. So the goal is to get them out into rural areas to develop relationships, to better familiarize them with rural issues. Our first tour that we did with them was in Mariposa County. A second was in Monterey County, and we're now working on a North State tour, actually partnering with the tribe in the North State to hopefully do a tour up there this year. The second thing that RAI does is research, and it usually one project per year. The first one was with Sacramento State to ask the question, are rural counties getting their fair share of state housing dollars? The short answer is some were, many were not. A second study that we partnered with CMSP actually was to do a granular level analysis of the healthcare workforce in rural counties. How many behavioral health therapists are there within any given area? How many nurses within a given area? And to have that data at the ready to drive policy decision. Our most recent one looked at fire and EMS capacity in rural counties, recognizing that for many of our small fire districts, they face a challenge of increasing call volume, decreasing volunteerism, and not enough sustainable funding for paid staffing. And so what do you do in that situation? If you were to read that report, I suspect it would look very basic to you because you probably deal with that on a regular basis here. But for the legislature, it hasn't even been a topic. So part of what that is, in that case, we partner with UC Santa Barbara's Wildfire Resilience Center, is to produce an academic report that can help drive the conversation at the Capitol with the legislature. We're now doing a second report with them that will look at their 12 recommendations and take those out into actual actionable ideas. And looking at this in a very different lens, which is there are rural health inequities that result when, for example, in Lassen County, there are areas without ambulance service. What does that mean in terms of those health inequities? And using some of those data points to drive the discussion again within the Capitol, the idea being that that report could become the foundation for a future hearing or something like that to really elevate the discussion around this in the Capitol. So more to come on that, but that's our latest affiliate entity. And I think that was my last slide, if you'll go to the next one. And I'm happy to take any questions or any additional feedback you have.
Okay, I got a couple. So where are we at with water?
With water, in any specific area of water? Speaking
Well,
of
you know,
frustrating.
There've been we're pretty frustrated out here. I don't have to tell you that. The whole valley, you're looking at a potential fallowing of 1 million acres, right?
Right.
There've been a lot of changes, potential look, relook at the biological opinion. That we're on probation out here with Sigma. And I think the Supervisor Raboon, he's out in the fight. Where's our CRC in the fight?
We formed a water ad hoc about 4 or 5 years ago to update our policy on all things water. I think the challenge for our members is we've got members in the North State, we've got members in the Delta, we've got members down here. And so there's a lot of different perspectives on what ultimately should happen on that front. Nonetheless, they did update our policy platform on that. Now we're doing the same around Sigma. I got to tell you, it's a frustrating area of even Sites Reservoir, which should be one where all hands on deck should be able to drive that forward pretty quickly. Even that's been a pretty big challenge. So I think for the staff working closest to the issue, they'd say it's frustrating and not likely to see substantive changes anytime soon.
Stockton finally got a water treatment facility, so they might be a little bit more likely to let that water slip down.
Yeah, it's but there's others.
Questions, comments, Supervisor Vellman?
Chain of command. So the person that you referenced as far as your ledge, is he your ledge staff or you on chain of command? Are you as the president, do you oversee your ledge staff?
Yes.
So your ledge staff doesn't have the ability to talk about opposing a bill. I'm talking about our bill without your authority.
No, actually, we've got policy that our board sets, and that's really what drives our policy positions.
Well,
So when we've got clear board policy, we have a policy manual.
Yeah, like the way we have our legislative platform.
Absolutely.
So you're saying that our bill doesn't fit with your legislative platform?
I think there are concerns that it may not. And I think that some of the other counties had expressed concern, and that's what John is trying to navigate through.
Because
think of us as the canary in the coal mine with these concerns, because it probably represents that there's half a dozen other counties out there who could become opposed too. So the goal is to not have that happen, to have discussions with Senator Hurtado's office, with your staff, to see if we can find a way to navigate that in a landing place where we don't end up with half a dozen or more counties opposing it.
But again, the problem is, okay, I'm hearing that you already opposed it. And I'm hearing that because we have lobbyists in the Capitol building too. And I'm hearing that you already opposed the bill. Is that true or not?
I don't know as I stand here. I haven't talked to John,
You're
but
the
that said,
president of this committee, sir.
I'm not gonna be able to answer it satisfactory to you, but what I would say is we're happy to sit down. That's what John is wanting to do, to figure out how do we get to a place where there isn't that opposition.
Okay, so then to the board, would it be your commitment as the president of RCRC that you would not make an official opposition to the legislature without sitting down and talking this through with us?
I think we've already offered to sit down and talk. We've got to do whatever our board policy is, so we can't deviate from that.
So if I call my lobbyist when this meeting's over and he tells me that you guys already officially opposed the bill, that's not going to be the case?
No, it could very well be the case. Point being, it's not too late. What we
It
can
is the
do,
case. Well, why can't you just say that it's the case, sir?
because I don't have it in front of me. I don't know where it stands today. But what I can say is that we stand ready to figure out a landing space.
Okay, so just say you oppose the bill and let's have a conversation on how we could meet, but don't tell me you don't oppose the bill when you guys are opposing the bill. We haven't even been to one committee hearing yet. The senator just introduced it.
We stand ready. I agree
You stand ready
to talk.
to talk.
Yes.
But you do oppose the bill.
Quite possibly. We have hundreds of bills we're taking positions on. I don't know the position on that particular
What
bill
I'd
as I stand here.
appreciate is the president that I would assume you would come here a little bit more respectfully before the board and just tell us what it is. It doesn't mean we're enemies. We could agree on 1,000 things together. Super Boone's working with you guys. He comes back with nothing but good things to say about you guys. We voted to join the organization. Just the way we get to common ground is by honesty. So just say you oppose the bill and let's have the conversation, but don't come here and say, maybe, quite possibly, no, you're the president of this, sir. And I'm trying to be respectful to you, but I don't feel the respect coming back to me from the podium.
Sorry for that. Our commitment is we stand ready to try to work through a remedy.
Patrick, I think what we would like to ask is maybe at the hearing committee that's coming up in April, if maybe RCRC can not oppose at that hearing, maybe just kind of wait till see how this develops. That I think would be the request until we work out, the bill language. If maybe it's coming up on the 22nd, and I know that's usually when the opposition shows up, and so maybe if RCRC couldn't just wait until after to see how that hearing goes.
What I suggest is we get a call with John today or tomorrow and talk through it.
And so when I presented it to John, he came over and talked to me. He says, there's some serious concerns about this that we need to address. And at that point, that's where we're at right now. We're addressing them and trying to get them to get cleared up, or so we understand it so we can support or not support. So right now, as the language that it is today, it's not supportable until we change some language, correct?
That's my understanding. Like I say, it's been a week since I had a chance to talk directly with John on it.
I'll keep fighting on it.
But that said, there's no reason we can't have that conversation today, tomorrow,
And there's
well before the committee hearing.
and another position you could take is a position of neutrality, right?
Correct.
Yep. And so just a short synopsis for the public really, but basically they're going to drive up restrictions, which are going to drive up costs. There's only two facilities really in the state of California, right? One in Buttonwillow and then the Kettleman City facility. So they're going to drive up those costs to such a degree. It's going to drive all the haulers out, and they're going to go to facilities that aren't very well regulated or much less regulated. Is that an accurate portrayal? Bob?
That was true. That's what we're hearing. That's what we're hearing on most of the early opposition is because organizations are saying, well, my county's going to have, if I can't cross state line and go to this landfill and I got to drive all the way to Kettleman or Buttonwillow, the people that I care about, I'm going to drive up their costs. So you're on point. But two, if you say you care about the environment, then why would you send to save a couple of bucks waste across state lines to landfills that are nowhere near the regulations that we have in the state of California, and specifically waste management? If you care about the environment, we sat here and we looked at slides of forest thinning and hearing about coyotes and all this stuff that they care about.
Shoot a coyote.
that they care about, right? Sounds like they care about the environment, but at the cost of saving a couple of bucks, let's dump this waste over state lines where environment control is lower. Thus, the environment in Nevada is the environment in California. It affects everybody. And so that early opposition sounds like it's just based on dollars. And so I know the senator is working hard. We're working hard. Our lobbyist's working hard. Mr. Henry's working hard. He's here. But again, I appreciate your presence here today because now we can have that conversation. Maybe you and Mr. Henry, I don't know if you guys ever met, but he is our local guy here for over 50 years. And this is who we work with right here. And waste management, when you want to talk about corporate neighbors, good corporate neighbors, they're the best. They do a lot for a lot of
We should
people.
probably set up a call with John Kennedy and Mr. Henry.
Okay.
Welcome, man.
All right. Yeah.
Let's do it.
Can't grill Patrick on it because he just handles everything. He doesn't, not in the group, but appreciate you coming down.
Thank you, Supervisor.
Thank you, Patrick.
Thank
We
you.
appreciate it. And,
Appreciate it.
and hey, we speak the language of RCRC. So thank you for the efforts of the group.
Appreciate it. Thank you,
All right.
Supervisor.
Thank you. Okay, is a study session, so evidently we don't need to take formal action. Is that correct, Madam Council? Yep. Okay, so then. Let's see, Sheriff.
Thank you. I just wanted to, we touched on it just real quick in that presentation, the jail medical stuff. As you know, we contract with WellPath, and I think that model is really gonna start to be broken. You go to these state sheriff's conferences, and at one point there was 35 counties that were contracted with WellPath, and as the renewals come up, the vast majority, a new private company's coming in. I think the big one now is called CHP, Correctional Healthcare Partners or something. They're going to come in, they're going to undercut, and then their prices are going to go up. So this every 2-year renegotiating with a private company. So just when he mentioned that maybe there's going to be this regional approach, it's something that really, I just want to bring it to your board's attention, that's going to need to be looked at, because this medical cost for our incarcerated folks in Kings County is going to continue to skyrocket unless there's a better model. And what I'm hearing throughout the state is with these private companies, they're going to come in, they're going to undercut, and then the price is going to go up. So we're in contract for a couple more years with WellPath. They do good for us. Now, other counties, as they've gotten bigger and they're in a bunch of places in the state, not some of the reviews are mixed and they're going to other private companies. But if there is a regional approach that was touched on real quick, it's something that I'd be happy to work on the next couple of years and bring it to your guys' attention. So thank you.
Thank you, Sheriff. Other comments, questions, public? Anybody? Anything online? No. All right, then we'll move on to board member announcements. Supervisor Neves.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Kings County First Five held their April meeting on the 7th. The funding allocation plan for the next 4 years was discussed and approved. The First Five annual report was also reviewed, and the spotlight on service was on the Kings County Office of Ed, who operate the Hanford and Lemoore Family Resource Centers, and it was a nice meeting. Continue to announce softball at Lemoore High. Attended the annual department head training on Wednesday morning. Thank you, Carrie, for that. And thank you for the breakfast burrito. Pretty good. On Thursday, attended the Kings County Department of Public Health celebration of National Public Health Week. Hosted the program fair in the Hope Room. Staff was very informative about all the programs and offered in the county. Attended the Sierra Pacific. Victor's already left, but the basketball parade on Thursday. Wonderful presentation at the steps of the Civic Auditorium. Attended the American Legion Post 100 breakfast in Lemoore. Unfortunately, the Kids Day event at Longfellow Center was canceled due to weather. So that freed up my Saturday morning. Donated to the Fill the Boot campaign in Lemoore for on Saturday morning, the Kings County Fire Department for supporting muscular dystrophy and setting that up, empowering people that are living with that disease. And then the Lemoore College Evening of the Stars that Alex talked about, I kind of renamed to Evening Under the Scoreboard at the beautiful Golden Eagle Arena because it was moved inside because of weather. Some great food from Gotti's Kitchen, music by Brown Sugar Band, adult beverages by different wineries and breweries in the area, made for a perfect evening. And again, that event benefited the Golden Eagle Food Pantry as well as Lemoore Christian Aid. With that, thank you very much, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, sir. Supervisor Thayer.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Not really much to report. After last week's meeting on Tuesday, the next early Wednesday morning, wife and I got up and left early, headed down to Cancun, Mexico for a destination wedding. Never been to one of those. But congratulations to our bonus daughter, Sarah. She's like another kid to us, and Sarah and Nate are now Nate and Sarah Hill. And congratulations to them. It was a beautiful wedding. We got back Sunday. Thankfully, still traveled through Denver. Almost had to spend the night there again. Barely made it. But nevertheless, made it back in time for Monday morning for a employee barbecue committee meeting. I'm looking forward to that event coming up, and good things are coming as we get the opportunity to honor our employees. And really a big shout out to Doug. He's done he's waved his magic wand and has really impacted that committee for the better. And just thank you for that participation. And then lastly, and sadly, I mentioned it in the prayer this morning, just really want to express my deepest condolences to the family of Tulare County Sheriff's Deputy Randy Hoppert, who was tragically shot and killed this past Thursday in Porterville. While I was in Mexico, I had a longtime childhood friend of mine frantically trying to phone call me, and finally got back in connection with him. And he explained to me, he knew I came from a career in law enforcement and that Randy was his nephew. And so these things are tragic to all through our communities. And it just makes that little bomb hit a little bit closer when you know somebody personally and their family that are suffering. So I know that my wife and I, our heart hurts for Randy's family, and just I'm sure they covered your prayers. So that's all. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Supervisor Vale.
Mr. Chairman, thanks. I join in those condolences as well. And just for the report, the things I was asked for, I spent time reaching out to leadership in the district and hearing their concerns. So I want that on record. And then just to reiterate, if the board can give direction consensus to the CAO to bring a letter of support for AB 2040. Somebody remember Macedo's bill. I'm not saying your last name right. So we can help her with a letter of support on that. So,
thank you, sir. Supervisor Broom.
Traveled to Sacramento last week for State Water Resource Control Board hearing or the regular board meeting. We had an issue on the agenda, which was to waive the fees on anybody that pumps 20 acre feet or less. We oppose that. We would like to be off probation and make that choice ourselves as a GSA board. They went against us. They had data that wasn't true. They had one of the GSAs, they had 292 wells, which we only have record of having 6. So we're working on now with an overlay to prove that their data was wrong, and they're making choices against us that have bad effects on us. So that was not good. I also spoke to get our county looked at back on the agenda as well and get looked at again to be off probation and give us a year to prove that we can do this before they start imposing any more fines and fees to us. They're going to take about $11 million out of our county to support what they said they spent money on taking care of us, which they didn't talk to us for 2 years. So this is pretty sad that they can come in and control us, take money out of our county. We're a disadvantaged community, and we deserve a little bit more respect than that. They have not worked with us at all, and we're asking them that they work with us. They worked with us for about 3 weeks now. They've been great for 3 weeks, but it doesn't warrant $11 million expenses coming to our county. They have a website that's been off and on, up and running for 2 years. Didn't get back online until the third week in March. It is crashed right now for me. I'm stuck on a page for 5 days. I've made 7 phone calls and not had a return phone call from staff. So it's very frustrating. We have to have it all done by May 1st. And it's just, I'm not a very big farmer, but it's going to be a big hit to me when you don't have any money off your crops. And I'm paying for my surface water now. I got to pay for my groundwater. So, and to give exemptions to people that pump out, it's 100 acre feet. Well, it's 20 acre feet, but if you had 5 small acreages near your ranch and you only pumped 100 acre feet, it's the same effect. And I know I did the 2024, my year's done, and they exempt you if you have 20 acre feet or less, and I'm 20.1. And that's going to cost me $810 for that 0.1. So it was disheartening to see that the staff, they wouldn't even look at me when I talked to them. They talked to me afterwards, but they have a directive from the governor to really stop our farming and stop our progress here in Kings County. So it's a fight that probably is the hardest one we have ahead of us, and the only one that matters to us at this point right now, because we lose ag in our county, a million acres. That's less revenue for us. And if you see on tax day, we all paid our personal property tax on Friday, and that will cease to exist if we lose our value of ground. So thank you.
Thanks, Supervisor. Let's see. Chuck Kinney and I had the pleasure of watching Supervisor Verboen. I have to tell you, if you saw the meeting, you'd be proud of Supervisor Verboen. He really stood up for the area and said what was necessary. But more importantly, he leveraged the relationships that he's had with them, and they listened. They went from a pretty affirmative position to a malleable position, and they're actually listening to our interests because of what he said. And so anyway, we're appreciative. Thank you for that.
Yeah, and add, so, we have our no export groundwater ordinance. They recognize that and used it. If they catch anybody with those 20 acres or less moving water, that they will enforce our ordinance, which is a big deal. And also I got them to state in there in the Tulare Subbasin that the water has to be used for a farmable crop, because they said it was just families trying to provide for themselves. And it's okay, that's fine. And put it in writing. Just make sure that if they're growing a crop that provide for a family, that's what they have to do, no export of the water. And so 2 were hesitant, but they all voted in favor of that. So that was a big deal.
Good job. Nice to hear about the muscular dystrophy kids. I'm an old muscular dystrophy counselor. All right. Last Wednesday, Thursday, attended the California State Association of Counties Executive Retreat in San Diego. Not what you would think in San Diego. I didn't even put my toe in the sand, but it was a great visit. I'd say the focus was legislative, but predominantly HR1 and the impacts to counties. And as you know, it's a huge problem, $6 to $8 billion potentially. So collectively, there is not one county that won't be negative impacted by that. So they all will. So we're all coming together to write letters and to fight that and to explain this is not our problem. It is our problem as a county to implement the dollars that are given to us by the state, but it's the state's problem to figure out their deficit and then to help us with that to maintain services. So that was what our discussion was. Yesterday, I chauffeured a group of kids, 4th graders, to the Sugar Pine train, and all was well till the illegal snow fight broke out. And anyway, good time was had by all, and that's all I have. Madam CEO.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. So the board received correspondence dated from April 6th from Michael Colantuno regarding a request to cure for Brown Act violations relating to special meeting held on March 28th. The board received correspondence dated April 13th from Tri-County Water Authority regarding a correction of the record and request for data files regarding the Tulare Lake Sub Basin April 7th, 2026 meeting for upcoming events. Kings County Behavioral Health will host its mental health family member support group tonight, next Tuesday, April 21st from 5:30 to 7:30 here on site. Kings County Library will host its Maker Monday at the Avenal City Branch Library this Monday, April 20th at 3 p.m. And Kings County Public Health will host its blood drive on Wednesday, April 29th from 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. at the Old Sheriff's parking lot. You can sign up online or walk-ups are also welcome. The upcoming agenda items are for April 28th. There is no board meeting on April 21st. Administration has 3 items: a public forum for the Truth Act, a resolution proclaiming May 3rd and May 29th as Public Service Recognition Week, and health insurance renewals for next fiscal year. Behavioral Health has 1 item on a rehabilitation center agreement. Child Support has 1 item regarding an intra-county plan of cooperation with county IT. CDA has an item on a Williamson Act contract and entering into new Williamson Act contract regarding River Ranch Farms. Health has 6 items: the purchase of a big text trailer for public health emergency preparedness operation, the purchase of a fit testing system, an agreement with the California Department of Healthcare Services for participation in medical admin activities program, and First Amendment to the California Department of Public Health Emergency Preparedness Program funding, an application with Vitamin Angels for prenatal vitamin distribution program, and an agreement with Evaluation Management and Training Associates for evaluation services for community wellness program. Probation has 1 item on the Day Reporting Center MOU. Public Works has an item on the Corcoran Health Clinic Improvement Project, and Sheriff has 1 item on the California Advanced and Innovative Medical Grant purchases. And that concludes my report, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you. Madam Council.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Under closed session, I have a correction for item 1. The correct agenda title is Government Code Section 54956.9 Subdivision D1, Conference with Legal Counsel, Existing Litigation. Name of case, City of Avenal v. County of Kings, related to fire services, case number 26CU0138. Items 2 through 5 are as reflected on the agenda. Item 2, conference with legal counsel, City of Avenal v. County of Kings, related to the recall election. Item 3, conference with real property negotiators, agency negotiator Carrie Martinez, under negotiation, price and terms of payment. Item 4, conference with legal counsel, anticipated litigation, significant exposure litigation, 3 cases. And item 5, conference with legal counsel, existing litigation, Stephen Lance Mendez v. Corcoran Branch Library. And I'll turn it back to you for public comment.
Very good. Do we have any public comment? All right, real good. So what's going to happen now is we're going to adjourn into closed session. But we will be back at 1 o'clock for the Mid-Kings River GSA meeting. All right. Thank you. 11:12.